So thanks everybody for joining us. And I know so many of you did attend our community and a bit about our Spark and partnership program there. To reiterate, the Spark partnerships support emerging and equity-seeking artists and arts organizations from diverse communities, enhancing artistic talents while promoting local artists and organizations through seed funding and mentorships. Through our partnerships, we offer seed funding of up to $5,000 to artists, arts organizations, and collectives, as well as community organizations and groups. So earlier this week, we sent out the Spark partnership call for proposals, along with some other documents. So today we're going to be reviewing those documents. I'll just note that for the Spark call for proposals, we're not going to review that fully, but it does include information about the Cultural Hotspot, the application process, the criteria, and our priorities as well. So it's a good idea to read that thoroughly. And if you have any questions, to contact a member of the team. There's contact information for Nafal and Andrea. And you can also always feel free to email culturalhotspot@toronto.ca, which reaches any member of our team. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to ask. We're always happy to answer. Before we just take a look at the application form, I just want to check in, see if Andrea and Nafal, you had anything to add about the Spark program before moving on. Just that little overview. Okay, great. So I'm going to open up the application form here, share my screen, and if you are calling in, I think it'd still be helpful to be able to listen in, even if you are not able to see the screen. So here we are, and that's not the right document. So we will go with the application form here, and I'm hopeful everybody can see that. Is that?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for answering. So we're just going to actually go through, this is sort of what we do in our Spark Info sessions, is really go through how to apply. And please feel free to ask any questions. Oh, I think I've got a request here for annotation. I'm not sure, we've not done that before.
That's, sorry, Emma, that was me. I didn't know what that was. I'm just new to the
Wonderful.
system. You can ignore that.
Okay, thank you. So I was like, this is a new feature. We've not done this before. Thanks, Diana. Okay, so the Spark application form here first identifies that you need to attend the Spark Info session, which you're doing right now. So great job, and talk to a member of our team, which you can do at the end of this session, or you can also call a team member and set up a phone call with a team member to talk about your project in more detail. And we really encourage you to do that, because it's a great way for you to get feedback and be able to have a stronger application. So here, so please complete your application form in order to apply for the Spark project. It must take place in East York, East End, Etobicoke, North York, Scarborough, or the former city of York, and be happening between May and October 2021. So the form must be submitted by midnight on January 15th, 2021 for eligibility. Really, I should say 11:59 on January 15th. And so you can apply online. we will have a link to the online application. It was sent to you in a previous email as well, but we will also, in a follow-up to this meeting, send you the link. It can also be accessed at toronto.ca/cultural hotspot. We recommend filling out the online form, but if you would like to submit an alternate format, you can also use the Word document that was sent to you. And if you need it another way, please let a member of our team know, and we're happy to take a look at that. So the start of the form here is just gathering your information, the name of your organization, your address. If you are an independent artist, you will need to have a trustee. So here where it says name of organization, just know that with partnership agreements, if you have a trustee, they will be the one. We will also have them as part of the partnership agreement. So if you don't have your trustee right away, or you have a potential trustee, that's okay. But just know that for us to be able to accept the project, we will need to have a letter of support from them. And they will be included and have to sign off on the partnership agreement. So a trustee should be an arts or community organization. So it must be a nonprofit. It cannot be a business or a private company. And it should have, it should be a good fit for your project. Quite often trustees, as well as handling the, taking the responsibility for the funding and supporting your project through that, quite often have other, will offer other in-kind support or have some sort of meaningful connection, but not always. But if you do have questions about trustee, please ask a member of our team. Andre, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I feel like that covers it.
Okay.
On the trustee front. Yeah, I think so.
Great. And if you have any questions about trustees, also you're welcome to ask in this session as well. So please let us know.
I mean, I guess I would say we can.
Oh, you just muted, Andrea.
Sorry, we all do it. We can kind of help match make at times if we know an organization. So we're happy to help with that.
That's a very good point. Yes. So if you're having troubles finding a trustee, please let us know. We can definitely try to help. That's actually very helpful. Thank you. So the first bit is just your information. We collect information. So if you don't have a website or social media, that's okay. Many partners we've had in the past have not, but please provide that information if you can, because it just allows us to learn more about you. It says year of your organization's formation. We know that many of the times when people apply, they formed for this project. If it's a collective. So we understand if your formation is this year. Any information that you can provide us as to whether your organization is nonprofit or registered charity, incorporated. And again, you don't need all these numbers below on number 13, where it says HST number, incorporation number, or registered charity number. But if you know that information, if you have that information, please provide it. It helps us out a lot. Probably the most important section here is the amount of funds requested. So please be specific with how much you're asking. And we will be asking for a budget, which we'll get to at the end. And that's when you can let us know how much, like how you're spending that request. And if additional funds are required for accessibility requirements, please let us know ahead of time. You can absolutely include that in the amounts of funds requested. So the accessibility requirements might be like a captioning, if you're doing video, ASL interpretation, personal support workers. If you're not sure if qualifies, please feel free to ask. We are more than happy to talk about how to include that funding on top of the SPERC request. So project start date and project end date should happen between May 1st, 2021 and October 31st, 2021. And then number 17 here is to include a ward number. And so especially this year, because we are outside of the downtown core in so many different neighborhoods, it's very important for us to know where all the projects are happening so we can make sure to have a nice balance geographically. And so let us know what city ward your project takes place in. There's a link on the online form. You can also look that up on the city's website. There's 25 wards, and you can find all that information there. So far, does anybody have any questions? Please feel free to pop on. Andre, no problem. I'm assuming that nobody does because you haven't.
Emma, I have a question.
Yes.
It might be premature question, but are we assuming that next year from May to October that we will be, conducting or facilitating in-person projects? Or
that's a very good question. So we would like, if you can, to identify maybe contingencies. So maybe you have an ideal program of what you would like to do, but recognizing that there might be different grades depending on where we are at, because unfortunately nobody knows where we'll be at that point in time with the pandemic. So I would suggest, proposing a program with as many safety measures as you can, and then also offering other things. So how to maybe translate that online if you had to. We definitely had many projects this year that we didn't know, obviously, at the beginning of the year, that had to adjust at the last minute, and people got really creative, which was wonderful to see. But the nice thing is everyone here today has time to think about how they might be able to alter their program to meet different demands, depending on what situation we're in with COVID-19.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Emma, for that. I think I'm just going to jump in and say, I think you really did cover it. But the other thing to note is just we definitely put in the contingency plan and know that we have to be really flexible. Certainly something that everybody's experienced, but that the city has experienced, has been what is the messaging behind public health. And so, because the Cultural Hotspot is a city program, we can't be out of line with that. So we have to be able to be nimble to be able to shift things as needed based on what public health is recommending.
Yes, that's actually a very good point, Andrea. Absolutely. So if you, we can actually, again, talk about that. If you have questions afterwards, you can ask a member of the team. Or you can also email us if you are, filling in your application and want to include or have some ideas but aren't sure if that would work. Let us know. We are happy to help you with coming up with contingencies for the pandemic. So I'm just going to move over into our program overview. And I'm just going to flip my page here. Really the program overview is actually about your project. So you can give it a title. You do not have to stick with this title when you submit. You might change your mind, but please give us that info. And And then number 19 here is provide us with a description of your proposed program. So this includes who will participate, what will take place, when and where it will take place. And we give an example of a virtual series of 6 weekly photography workshops for youth, culminating in a series of projections on a local building. So we gave that description. Obviously, it's very short. We give you up to 2,000 characters. But what we wanted to make sure was that you can see that we know what it is. We know who it's for, and what the overall objective of the project is. And so please be specific. One of the tips that I have is write out your project description and then have a friend who has no idea what your project is read it and explain your project back to you. And if they can't explain it, then that means you need to work on it, because we really want to be able to understand the nuts and bolts of your project and what it's going to entail and who is going to be involved. If you have questions about that ahead of time, again, talking to a staff member is also a really great idea and can help you with that. So the project rationale, this is probably one of the harder questions on our application. So this really relates back to the priorities of the hotspot and our goals, which you can also find on our call for proposals. Again, we want you to be specific. So why do you want to do this project? And why do you want to do it in this specific community neighborhood? Who do you want to engage? And why this particular group of people? So just to keep that in mind, we really want you to identify why you feel there's a need for this project. Is there a gap in services provided in that neighborhood, or arts programming in that neighborhood? And do you want to bring something specific? So I can sort of give you an example. So maybe you'd like to do a mural project, and you'd want to express why you've chosen to do a mural specifically, why you want to do it in specific location, and how does it connect with that community. So you might be working with community members or a local school or a local group to come up with the themes and design for it. But you want to be specific as to why you want to involve them in its creation. And actually, I will just quickly pivot to say, keep in mind that the projects for Spark are community engaged projects and should involve, while they are public art projects as well, should involve members of the public as participants, as mentees or mentors, as employed, but you want to bring the community in from wherever your project is. So that's really what you are identifying in the project rationale. And I'm just going to check in with Andre Nafal here. Did that cover everything for the project rationale? Great. As I say, that's kind of a big question. It seems small, but this is really where you identify the need for your project. So we will just go on here to project partners. To list and indicate any additional project partners. So this would not be your trustee. This would be, I guess project partners can be your trustee, but this is on top of that, additional partners. So traditionally partners might be working with you specifically on programming. They might be offering you in-kind space or outreach through their networks or social media, or offering some kind of support. I just want to say here, it says not a funder. So if you're receiving money from other funders, so such as Toronto Arts Council or Ontario Arts Council, they would not be classified as a partner. It's really if you're working with another organization or collective, or I don't know, like a local library who's offering you space, they can be partners. It has to be that they're offering some, administrative or programming or space, some sort of support, and that it's more of a meaningful partnership. So if you do have questions about that, let us know, and we're happy to help you with that. If you don't know who your partners are right away, that is okay. You can also identify partners that you are approaching or have approached. Just know that if you are selected as a partner, if your application is selected, you will be required to provide letters of support from those partners. So you don't have to know everybody right away, but identifying your partners is definitely a good start. And I'm hopeful that covered that, Andrea. Great. So the target audience here, again, we want you to be specific. This is also a big question. So be specific and be intentional. You do not have to make your program appeal to a broad audience or focus on an audience or force the audience to fit the project. You know what you want to offer. You've already put it in your rationale that this is why you want to have this project here. So maybe you're serving a very specific community. It could be vulnerable populations or seniors or newcomers or youth, or you've identified a need in a neighborhood, and that that's okay to have a targeted audience. You don't need to include everybody. I think while we do have a lot of priorities that you'll read in the call, it's important to sort of lead with your project and not try to make it a broad appeal. Make sure that you think about who you need to reach out to, and then also how you will engage them. So making sure that there is that audience there when you come up with your project. Is there any questions from anyone so far? We've covered a lot of ground. And my eyes and ears are Andrea Nafal here, so
No
and Lori.
Okay. No questions.
Great. And feel free to ask questions. You can turn your microphone on or put it into the chat. Lori, Andrea, Nafal here are watching everybody because I can't see you on my screen. I'm happy to, we're happy to answer them as questions come up. Okay. So as I mentioned in the last one, their audiences, especially when it comes to reaching out to that audience. So you will be asked this with sort of an outreach strategy in question number 23. How will you get participants and audience for your project? Please give detailed examples of what promotional materials you will use and how and where you will disseminate this information. My little video window covers up some of the screen. So I think this is an opportunity really for you to tell us that strategy. So this might be materials that you distribute online. Maybe you're doing ads or social media. You might be working with a partner, which is also a bonus if you have partnerships. They can very much help you find audience. So when coming up, when deciding if you will need a partner or have a partner on a project, really consider how you can meaningfully work together to reach your audience. So outreach strategies. Like this is kind of, it's kind of, I guess right now I'm describing more marketing, but we've had people put posters, their projects on local businesses, in windows, at libraries. They've asked local arts organizations to distribute the information through their newsletters and social media. And then also worked with schools or community organizations. Some projects might have an audience built in. I think there's definitely been projects that have taken place at schools or at seniors' residences, long-term care facilities, and places like that where you like the very people you're working with are your audience. So I think just to also consider that is what's the best way to reach out to the audience that you're looking for, and how to do it. So again, if you're running a program for seniors, posting an ad on Instagram is probably not going to help you very much. But maybe reaching out to a local community group that's mostly seniors or long-term care facility can help you reach your audience. So really consider who you're looking for and what the best way to reach them is. And is there any questions about audience or like outreach strategies? Because I know it's a big one. Okay. Quiet group today. So the next two questions, number 24 and number 25 here, are about youth mentorship and youth employment. And it's kind of worth mentioning them together because we count them, it's part of the hotspot, as very different. So youth mentorships are, to describe the structure of the mentorship and what skills the youth mentorships are very intentional programs. You will, have a plan. So whether or not you're pairing that youth with an artist, or you have a series of workshops or training for them to learn how to learn a skill. Youth mentorships, the youth can actually earn an honorarium and still be mentees, but it's a very intentional program to train the youth in the specific skills. And youth employees are youth that you are hiring who probably already have the skills. Not that they're still not learning, they might be learning and getting a lot out of the experience, but if there's no formal program to train them, they are not mentees. So there is a difference there, and it's a slight difference, but definitely worth asking a member of our team if you're unsure. We do have in our call, you'll notice, focus on youth mentorships and youth employment. Your project does not need to have any youth involvement if it doesn't make sense for your project. So the same way with your audience, that you don't need to reach out to audiences that aren't practical or don't fit your project. The same thing with the youth. So you do not have to have a youth component if your project if it doesn't fit with your project. But if it does, and if you are planning to, this is where you would indicate that. Okay. And is there any question about the youth mentorships versus employment? Because that could be. Oh, did I hear some? Yes.
Yes. The youth, when you consider youth, are you consider college age students youth?
Yeah, I think we are under 29 and under, right?
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes. I would also actually suggest maybe identifying the exact age range. Youth mentorship sometimes include high school age, like 14 to 18 range, or the college age, as you were saying, or can go up to 29. And it is also good to identify exactly which youth you are targeting and how you're reaching out to them specifically. If it's like you're reaching out to these colleges, or you're reaching out to this school or this program at the library that has youth participants or something like that, I would identify that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And if anybody else has any questions about any other questions so far, any other parts of the application, please feel free to ask. So number 26 here is, if you are working with equity-seeking groups, please describe who and how. So again, be specific about which equity-seeking groups you're working with and why. You can identify if your project's not specifically engaging equity-seeking groups, but if it is, the engagement really should be sincere and meaningful and relevant to the project. So the how part of this question is your opportunity to show us that you've thought about who you're reaching out to, how you're planning to engage or work with your audience or participants for the creation of the project, and how will this project impact the specific community or group, and how will they impact your project. So you might be it's all the same like with the audience and with the youth component. You want to make sure that everything fits your project. This is a very intentional audience that you're seeking. Maybe you are part of a part of an equity-seeking community, and you want to work with a member of the equity-seeking community. So like, just really think about how you want to engage people and make it intentional, and have it fit your project. Don't force it if it doesn't work, is essentially what I'm saying. Does that make sense? Is there any questions there? Okay. So I think we're going to move on to our program objective here. And I can just see our timing. So this is sort of the last section. And so this is where you tell us a bit more about you. So not about your project, but this gives us a chance to learn more about your organization. So just going over here to 28, please tell us a bit about your organization or collective, describing one past project that shows your ability to undertake a Spark project. So we understand that sometimes collectives form ad hoc for the Spark program, but typically you can at least, especially if you're an independent artist, you can maybe give an example of a project you've done in the past that that's a similar scale to the Spark project, or that you're working with a partner who has done projects at this scale. Again, be as specific as you can, and tell us, oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, it's the next one is the goals. Yeah, I guess that's about it for that question, but this is really a chance for you to kind of give us the history of your organization and let us know what you're about, and we want to know that you're capable and have the capacity to complete the project from start to finish. And so number 29 here, how does this Spark project tie in with your organization's goals? How does your project tie in with the stated Cultural Hotspot goals? So again, you will want to reference the call for proposals and the information that we gave out in the Community Connect meetings. If you have any questions for us about our goals and priorities, please feel free to reach out. But what we also want to know is whether or not we're a great fit for your organization, as well as your organization being a fit for us. So we want to make sure that we're aligned on that. And we want to make sure that any projects that we do benefit everybody involved. So this is that opportunity for you to express that to us. So again, let us know if you have any questions. You can always email a member of the team or Cultural Hotspot at toronto.ca. And we're just at the end of the application here. So the last two things that we look at are the timeline, the budget, and the evaluation. So we have 612. Okay, so I think we're going to just quickly look at the budget. And then if we've got time, look at our timeline tip sheet here, which was also sent to you. And then we'll go from there. So I'm just going to close this application. There we go. Hi, everyone. And we're going to move over to the budget. So assuming no questions so far, because that was a lot. If you have a question, please let me know.
No questions that we're seeing yet, but also note, and I know Emma has said this a lot, you'll be able to reach out to us at any time as you're looking through the application form and ask questions as well.
Yes, exactly. So I'm hoping everybody here can see the budget on their screen. Is that correct? Great. Okay. So this is our not quite so fancy Excel budget sheet that we sent out. This should be submitted with your application. Let us know, again, if you need anything in a different format. This application hopefully is useful and helpful. We really look at on the budget revenues, expenditures, in-kind donations, and then we'll talk a bit at the end about our sort of indicators, performance indicators. Not sure what to call them there. And we'll talk a bit about it, about the budget here as we go through. So when you look at the budget here, what you're going to be filling out is this projected column. This is what you're going to fill out with your application. You are not going to fill out the final column. If your project's selected, you will fill out that final column when you give us your final report at the very, very end. So just to make sure you only, there's no point in doubling the work. Just fill out the one column. So here we're looking at the contribution from your organization. So this can be zero. You might be giving in-kind support to the Cultural Hotspot, and we'll talk about that when we get to our in-kind section. But you might be also contributing funds from your organization directly. So this is where you would reflect that. Our private sector revenues here include donation sponsorships. I can't talk today, sorry. Foundation grants, fundraising, and grant funds. You can also feel free if one of these does not reflect your situation. If you've got, you can change it. You do not have, these are sort of more just suggested, I want to say, so you can always feel free to add if it's not there, a field if it's not there. And government revenue. So this here is where you fill in any funds that you got from the government. So Canada Council, looking at, Ontario Arts Council or Ontario Trillium Foundation or municipal. So the Cultural Hotspots right here, I put in because I thought it might be helpful. So I pre-filled in that this project here has received $5,000 from the Cultural Hotspot. And when I did that, it automatically put the money here. And so we have it just so that it's automatic. So if I took that away, there we go. So you can see how that tallies. And so you might only be receiving Cultural Hotspot funds, but just this gives you an opportunity to capture any other funding that you're using. Expenditure. So again, I filled in some things, but you can always add your own. So over underneath, it says other, where I've highlighted here, use lines below for breakdown. So if you need to add categories, please do. These are just some suggested categories to think about. So artist fees, equipment, programming. So that includes materials and people who might be offering the programming, documentation, honoraria, venue permits, which we've included to remind you that you might need a venue permit. So, and your culminating event and celebration, and then you might have other expenditures as well. And really that permitting is a good thing to think about ahead of time, because that might take a long time for your application. It's worth seeing how much it costs, whether, maybe you need a permit for a park or for to paint a bench out on the street. It can take a while. So it's really a good idea to reflect that earlier and look into both cost and the time it's going to take for that permit application. So I filled out the expenditures here earlier just to show here that we've got $4,000 here identified in our expenditures. And so here we're going to go to administrative, and marketing expenditures. So again, you can reflect that here, and you can add any columns to that. And we now know we spent $4,000 worth of expenditures, and below it, it says our surplus deficit is negative 1,000. So we realized that we haven't spent all of our money. The Cultural Hotspot gave you $5,000. You've only spent $4,000. So just to be aware, I'm going to just fill this in here. So we did $500 on administrative and $500 on marketing. That gets us to $5,000, and our surplus deficit is 0. And that's really what we want. We want the 0 balance. Your budget should balance, and we want to make sure that any money that the Cultural Hotspot's providing you is spent on your project. So please let us know if you have any questions about that, and we're happy to answer. So we also want you to reflect your in-kind contributions. So this is really anything in kind that you're receiving, maybe from your partner, or even not one of your partners, maybe just a local business is able to provide you with something, or like even a friend lending you access to their equipment. We want to capture in a dollar amount the support provided to your project. And the reason for this is because we want to know how many dollars we have leveraged through this partnership with you. So, for example, if somebody gives you space for free, they maybe normally rent out that space for $60 an hour. So you know that you have this space for 6 weeks of sessions at 3 hours a week, then you can include that as a dollar amount. So to think about that, if someone's lending you equipment, how much would that rental have cost if you didn't have that being lent to you? Or and most importantly, volunteers. We already talked today, it already came up about how amazing volunteers are, and that they make the world go round. volunteer hours are actually valued at $21 per hour. So if you know that you're going to have 10 volunteers working for you, it's good to project how many hours you assume they're going to work for you, and then you can calculate that at $21 an hour and include that in your in-kind contribution to your project. So this section, if you have any questions, please let us know. Feel free to ask now or to email us. But if you do have any in-kind contributions or expecting any, please include that. Okay. And the last part of the budget isn't really budgetary. We collect information, which I guess anyone working with us will know, or who has worked at the hotspot. We report on what we call performance indicators, and really this really gives us the overview of your project from a numbers angle. So how many events you're planning, how many workshops are you planning, how much attendance do you expect at those events, the number of youth you're going to employ, volunteers you're going to have, the expected number of hours. This really gives us an overview of your whole project. Like, yes, you've described it in your application, but this gives us just that sense of exactly how many of what's happening and how many workshops and the nitty gritty of it, of just of understanding that overview. And again, fill out the projected column. We know that you might have a very different final situation, but this will let us know what you're expecting to accomplish in your project. So it is part of the budget because it's stats, there's numbers, but it should also be reflected in your application as well. Okay, so that's the budget. Is there any questions? Any questions about the budget there? No? Okay. And do we have time to just quickly look at the timeline tip sheet before we do the breakout groups? Andrea?
Yeah, why don't we look at it for a couple of minutes and then
Great.
we'll go toward the breakout.
Wonderful. Okay, we're actually getting through everything today. Okay, so here we go. So leaving the application here, and we are just going to call up our timeline tip sheet. So this was sent to you in an email. I feel like the font's really small. I'm just going to zoom in here. So this is the how to create a timeline. I'm going to say right now that we are happy to supply you. We have a timeline template. Please ask us if you're interested. We find that partners quite often like to come up with their own. So we really gave you a tip sheet so that way you can figure out what works for you. And so if you're interested in using our template, contact a member of our team and we can send that to you. Yeah, we just found that that actually it was beneficial for partners to use a system that worked for them better. So how to create a timeline. We're just going to skip this first section here. We really want your timeline to reflect everything from coming up with your project plan. So it might start, there's a good chance your timeline is going to actually start before May 1st, because if your project starts on May 1st, you have to obviously do that planning, permit applications, maybe you're getting staff or volunteers. That's all going to happen before that May 1st date. So we understand that your timeline and the chronology of your project will maybe be a little different than that May to window that we gave for your project. So your project's happening, like the events are happening between May and October, but we understand that there's definitely some pre-planning. So it says here, before you start putting dates and responsibilities in to your timeline, start by identifying the following. So think ahead of time before you create a timeline, what the scope is of your project. So are you starting from scratch? Do you already kind of have a plan in place? And what's the end point? Because maybe you're going to complete the workshops, but then, or a project, but not have a celebration for that project for 3 weeks afterwards. Things to think about are how you're structuring the project. Think about the tasks that need to take place from the beginning to the very end. So there's quite a lot of, we're going to kind of talk about that actually below, but there is a lot to think about when you think of individual tasks, and thinking about who that's assigned to, and how long each of those tasks will take. Estimate the time here to complete each task. Don't forget that some tasks are dependent upon others. So maybe you need to make sure that you have a permit before you can go ahead with some planning. And also timelines is an opportunity for you to allocate someone to complete each task. And I think also to keep in mind, as much as this timeline's for us, it's also for you. This is a really great opportunity for you to get a handle of your project and keep yourself on task. Is there a question there? Oh, sorry, I thought I heard. So just, and keep that in mind, all these documents, as much as they're for us, like budgets and things like that, they're also for you to keep track of your project, and to help you out as well. So says here, the Cultural Hotspot likes to keep it simple. We don't need any fancy graphs or charts, which is true. You can make a list or a table as your timeline. It's really what works for you. If you want to use a fancy graph and chart, you can do that too. But we just need to make sure that the information is there and that it's clear for both you and for us as to what's happening, and what the chronology is, and how you're going to accomplish your project. So just quickly here, looking at tasks, I think this section here where it says consider task headings such as, but not limited to, planning, outreach and participants, administrative tasks, project implementation, and post-project tasks. So really that's to give you an idea of how maybe you might want to split up your timeline, and think about those categories and what fits underneath each of those, and that those are just really potential ideas to help instruct you in creating your timeline. So be as detailed as possible when listing all the individual tasks that fall under each task heading. Be specific to your project and identify important milestones so that you can track your progress. So dates, this is again suggestion, but add a start date and a due date for each task. And consider the fact that that while a job might be done quickly, that it is perhaps dependent on other factors, and build that into the time frame. Responsibility. So you can include section 2 where maybe you assign that task to a specific person or group of people who are responsible for getting that task done. And then you might want to add a space for notes where you can explain what may or may not affect an outcome, due date, or anything else that should be noted. And I'm just going to call here to give you a visual of everything that we just talked about. This is a project timeline for actually based on a project that we had this year. And this is actually using the Cultural Hotspots template. So again, if you are interested in using our template, let us know. But you might also have your own way of doing things. And so identifying the start date, end date, the task itself, the task start date and due date, who it's assigned to, and the notes. So we kind of talked about that as being the main subject headers that you need to have there. And then looking at, that planning section. I guess this is really where we see the project developing in that chronology. So developing the plan, submitting the permits, installing the artwork, when outreach and marketing would happen. So you can really see that project form as a chronology by following the headings, when the marketing pieces are created, and then looking at the unveiling event and like celebrations. So it's a good opportunity for you to really write down how you envision your project happening from start to finish and from that administration angle. So I will just close this. But please let me know if you have any questions about project timeline or the budget.
Seeing no questions, I feel like, Emma, you've done a very thorough and wonderful job of going through the application. So thank you for that, which I guess takes us to the next part of our meeting, which is moving into breakout groups so that we can hear some of your project ideas and provide you some feedback. So I think I'm going to put Lori on the spot just to explain what people will see on their screens in the next couple of moments with regards to breakout sessions.
So we're going to split the groups, and some of you are about to put out in the room. So you'll be with Andrea and Paul. You'll receive an invitation, and that will move virtually into the room. If you don't receive a little communication window, then you're going to stay here in the room with Emma, Miranda, and myself. It's very simple.
Okay, look for that invitation, folks. And if you've got it, click join now.
Yes, it worked. All right. People are slowly joining. I guess this is a good moment. If someone wants to take a quick break.
Oh, sorry, Laura, your microphone's cutting out.
Is this any better?
Oh, yes, that's better. Thank you.
Okay. So we have most of the people who have joined the other room, but Emma and Miranda, do you want to take like a 2-minute break in case anybody?
Yeah, I think we can definitely take a 2-minute break if anybody needs to get themselves some water or tea or take a bio break, and then we can meet back here. It's 6:35 now, so maybe 6:30. Let's say 6:38. Let's do 3 minutes, and feel free.
Lori, I didn't get an invitation to join a group.
Yeah, you're gonna stay here with us. You're good.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
I think Dan, because you're on cell phone, I think it's easier if you stay in the main room. So I made sure to keep you here. No worries.
Okay. Thanks.
I didn't get an invitation either, so just stay. Okay.
You're good.
Yes.
Yeah. See you.
This counts as one of the groups. It's nice to see everyone.
Nice to see you.
I feel like we covered so much material. I hope everyone feels that all your questions are answered, and I mean, we're always our door's always open. Our email's always open. And feel free to ask questions in the breakout group as well. Just give it another couple minutes. All right. So it is now 6:38. So I think we'll get started. So typically what happens in a Hotspot Connect, Spark Info session when we're in real life and meeting in person, is we talk individually as a one-on-one with everybody about their project ideas or any questions that they have about the application or the hotspot, and give feedback. Unfortunately, given the world that we're in right now, we're not able to do that. So this is really an opportunity for you to get feedback about your project in a smaller group setting, and to discuss your ideas. You might also be able to connect with somebody like now, or if there's suggestions. But I will ask for your patience. We're going to kind of go around and give everyone an opportunity here. I also want to let you know that any scale of idea, whether or not you know absolutely what your project is, where it's going to be, who's going to be involved, or if you're unsure of your project, maybe you just have kind of an idea, but it's not fully formed, we're still happy to give feedback on any sort of level of formation for project ideas. So just keep that in mind. There's still lots of time. The application's not due till January 15th. It's 6:40 now, so you're welcome to stay to the end. You don't have to. It's up to you once we discuss your project. For your application, we do recommend talking to a member of the team now, or calling Nafal Sheikh at a later date, or Andre Raymond Wong, whose info is in that Spark call, specifically about your project, and they can also give you feedback on your application. The reason we do this is that it has results in stronger applications. It results in stronger projects because we're more aligned, having had that discussion ahead of time. So just to keep that in mind, we're in a smaller group. You might find it beneficial to kind of listen on others' project ideas. We might be giving feedback. Someone has a specific question about their project. Maybe that's something that you hadn't thought of for yours, and you can learn something from that. So, I want to say last time it was permitting. someone had a question about specifically about permitting, and it sparked somebody else saying, "Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought of that." So, I think it's it can be beneficial in a way to do it this way, while not quite the same as a one-on-one. So, I'm going to open up the floor and see if anybody here would like to go first and ask me if you share your project idea, what you'd want, how you're envisioning the Spark project for next year, where you want it to take place, who you're targeting, and how that can fit into the 2021 Cultural Hotspot, which I realized I didn't actually really mention earlier, but this year is themed to public art. So if you have any further questions about that as well, I'm happy to answer. So do we have some brave volunteer who wants to talk first about their project? Hi, Diana.
I can go. Hi.
Hi.
I'll go first because I'll probably be the shortest. And I have to leave at 7. But
Okay.
I'm really not quite sure yet. I know that I'd like to work again in the Scarborough community, and I'd like to do like an intergenerational photography project. I've worked with a couple of different communities in Scarborough, and I see the potential for maybe doing some sort of intergenerational photography based project. I just haven't, honestly, I mean, that's about the scope of my project idea. I've done quite a few intergenerational workshops throughout the city. So I would tailor this one specifically to whichever community that I end up working with in Scarborough, or possibly East York. So I would, tailor it based on, maybe some themes or issues that might be of interest to that specific community. So right now, I think, my goal is just to secure an organization that I could partner with.
Okay.
And I also have friends and people that I've worked with that, and organizations that I worked with in the past that might be interested, and probably most likely would be interested in partnering with me again to some extent. And I think that would also inform the scope of the project, the timeline, the scope, the themes, and all those types of things. So I think it's probably going to be, my goal will be within the next couple of weeks to really find an organization that I can partner with, and then sort of take it from there.
That's great. I mean, we've worked with you now, I think, a number of times, and I know, I don't know what your plan is for tailoring that program once you have an area that you are working with. That sounds like a great project. The intergenerational aspect too is really beautiful. If you are having troubles finding a partner, is this for a trustee or just a partner in general that you?
I would have to also find a trustee, although it seems that whatever organization I work with, if they are a nonprofit, that they could also stand in as my trustee. So
exactly, yes, yeah.
So I'm that's probably most likely that'll probably be the case, most likely. Otherwise, I feel confident I could find a trustee that would have some sort of meaningful connection to the project. So
wonderful. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, I don't actually have that much feedback. I don't know if you've thought of if outreach and your strategies there, if you're reaching out to schools.
Oh yeah, outreach. The way that I've done it in the past, it is very much in collaboration with whatever organization that I might be working with, because usually they have more of the network, to sort of do the outreach. I would do the outreach obviously through my website and all of my social media
Right. So finding that partner sounds like it would be really essential to the whole project then.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it's sort of through them that you would,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
sometimes I wish that I wish there was a way that I guess maybe this is just a suggestion for the cultural hotspot. Like if there was a way that we could make connections with organizations that might be interested in having might be interested in partnering with a cultural hotspot project. Because I'm always eager and happy to work with new organizations, or maybe
Okay.
organizations that probably don't even know much about the cultural hotspot or how they could benefit as well from a type of
Right.
community engagement, project. But
Mhm.
that's okay. I mean, I'll do the footwork. I mean, for example, another thing I was thinking of is I've worked with special needs, organizations that might work with individuals of all ages that might have Down syndrome and or learning disabilities. And so I'd love to do that again. It's just that I don't always know who they are or where they are. I have to do a lot of research
Where
and
to reach out to,
yeah.
yeah.
But
So yeah, I would say this, we'll continue maybe this conversation offline if you want to contact either Nafal or the Culture Hotspot general account. We can always try to our best to match you up with a partner. It really is it's kind of part of our capacity of who we've worked with in the past and who we have a relationship as well to be able to pair you. But we also can come up with some suggestions. There's certainly areas of the city that we can approach other units and see if they also have a suggestion of an appropriate partner. So I would definitely say if that's a big question for you, and you want to work with some new groups to reach out to Nafal or Andrea, and then we can work on finding that information.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah, thank you so much. I think I have one more question, and it's kind of so, and I don't even know how to fix it. Oh, I just have one more question.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? There was a bit of a delay.
Yes, I can. There was. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering, I don't know if this in any way reflects the goals of the cultural hotspot or some of the the goals or the priorities of the cultural hotspot, because it seems like such a grassroots kind of community engagement type of initiative. But I've been doing on my own end since I've been sort of pushed into teaching virtually and the synchronous online kind of stuff. I've been partnering with educators, photography educators from around the world, and trying to do do a global project with them. And I'm wondering is it too far-fetched to maybe propose a project that would involve some sort of global aspect that might connect people, let's say from Scarborough or East York, with people somewhere else in the world.
Absolutely. Sorry I don't want to interrupt there. That's okay. Absolutely fine. You'd have to be specific about who you're pairing with global educators or photographers for that information, and why that specific area that you're focusing on. So if it's a Scarborough or East York specifically, the project would still need to be somewhat geographically meaningful to that area, but I don't think there would be a problem with pairing or using global influences or educators as part of that project. I think it would be identifying the ways in which you are still making it very specifically local and connecting with that community. And involving, so maybe yeah, maybe there's an opportunity for, you know, I don't know, for local artists or participants of the program to learn and to gain those skills through this opportunity that might be applied elsewhere in the community. But definitely something to think about.
Yeah. So I think if I understand correctly, I mean, obviously there has to be a really strong sort of local tie to the specific community that I'll be working with.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, of course. Okay, well, that's good to know. I wasn't sure how far I could venture, you know.
Of course.
Yeah, especially
I was going to jump in for a
a
second.
contingency plan, right?
Yes, Carrie? Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry, I was going to say I'm sending you my email because I'm on the board of a organization be interested in working with you, and as well, I was thinking that you could also connect with the Scarborough Arts. I don't know if you've worked with them before, the local arts service organization. Yeah, and I had a few other thoughts too. Of course, you should definitely connect with Andrea and Nafal, but I would like to talk to you about this one organization, which is the Community Head Injuries Resource Center. They're always looking for interesting programming for adults and of all ages from like 18 to 85. So I'll just sending you my email and maybe we could have a chat about that. Okay, super.
Sure. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie. That's very helpful.
Thanks.
Great.
Oh, and then one last thing. If I leave at 7, if I drop off, I might have to leave at 7, so I'll just drop off anyway.
Okay, of course.
Thanks.
And I just want to move on to anyone else who has a project idea that they'd like to discuss today. Linda?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention right just before Diana goes. So I'm from Real Abilities, and we're based out of the Miles and Community Center in Midtown, and we're often doing programming for the community. We work a lot with the disability community, and we also have recently done a lot of youth programming. We just wrapped up a project with Cultural Hotspot.
Yes.
So please feel free to reach out to us. Like, we love all of you who are artists. If there's like anything you would want to put together, we'd love to kind of gather resources and bring programming to the community.
That's awesome.
That's great. And and we can connect you, Diana. You can, if you email, we're happy to pass on Real Abilities contact information. Or Linda, if you want to, if you feel free to post it in the chat, if that's not too much, or we can find a way to connect you both. Yes. So, and same goes, if anybody here would like to connect with another person as part of this call, let us know, or an organization specifically that we can help with. We are also happy to help. Okay. Thanks, Diana.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who has a project idea they'd like to get some feedback on? Judith. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, we have a very large scope project in Long Branch at the TTC loop. It's the Long Branch TTC loop, which is the end of the 501 streetcar.
Yeah.
So I think it's about almost 400 feet, but we're applying for a START grant as well again. So that's a large capital grant. So Nafal was mentioning we would need to do a hotspot component, like a smaller component. We couldn't do the whole project with the grant that's available by Spark. So I think just to make sure we're on the right track, and we'll connect with you later. What's the best project to apply for? If, for example, I think we're looking at, it would be having workshops, artist workshops for youth. It would be Indigenous. We have an Indigenous elder to work with.
Wonderful.
Who's going to connect with us. So working with him, either doing a workshop with him, with youth, with both Indigenous youth and non-Indigenous youth, and then having a workshop. So I think that would encompass and take up the amount of money that's available with this project. So if that's the best for us to take, the workshops or artist talks, I think. Are there any other small scope projects that you could think of that might?
Oh, well, that certainly fits. So we've typically, or this has happened before where, so we've had projects that are larger scale, but then the hotspot funding has been associated with it, whether that's, workshops or more like targeted program or grassroots program and community engaged program within the overall of this bigger project. So that would not be the first time that that's happened. And what you're describing right now, like it depends obviously on how many workshops and what's happening. I don't know if this project, what kind of art project is this, or?
It's a mural, a large
it's a mural. Okay.
Involving graffiti artists as well.
Okay. So, I mean, looking at what the culminating event is, will the youth as part of those projects, as part of the workshops, be somehow engaged in the creation of the artwork, or is that just happening on the side? Okay.
It would be creation of the artwork. Mm-hmm.
So they're sort of integrated, but at the same time a little bit separate, which is nice. Like that's absolutely appropriate, and we can definitely make that work. So yeah, having the hotspot component be specifically the workshops, but as part of the bigger project, that is absolutely possible. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thanks so much for that. I think I know what you're exactly what you're talking about with that 501 streetcar loop. Does anyone else want to talk about an idea they have? And remember, it does not have, you can have a fully formed idea, or you can just sort of, if you have just something that you're thinking about that you don't know yet exactly what your project is, that's okay. We're still happy to give some information or feedback on that. Okay. And I also want to say that if you are ready to talk about it now, that's great. But make sure that before you fill your application on January 15th, submitted by January 15th, that you do talk to a member of staff. So if you are not wanting to talk now, that's totally understandable, but it is absolutely essential to talk to a member of staff. So that way we can make sure that your project application fits within the hotspot, and that we're a good fit for you as well.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the theme?
Sorry?
You said that there was a theme this year with Spark.
Oh, a theme. Yeah, so this year, so next year is actually the year of public art. And I think in the call for applications, there might be a link to the Artworks TO Year of Public Art website, which has a lot more information. But we decided this year to, instead of, as you know, from being a partner this year, have a geographically bound area that we are focusing on, to instead make the hotspot accessible for anywhere outside of the core, and then do a themed hotspot instead, and to amplify the city's year of public art and to support that program. So that does mean that we're looking for projects this year that have a public art component. However, I will just say that we are very loose with our definition of public art. And we want it to be very broad. We also still need the projects to fit within the Cultural Hotspot priorities and goals, which are community engaged projects primarily. So yes, a component of public art is absolutely what we're looking for. We don't want to lose that community engagement aspect. So so just to be aware of that going into it. Now, public art for us can be performance, it can be music, it can be visual arts projects. We really are very broad. It can be outdoor screenings. It can be many things. And if you're unsure, please talk to, ask the questions now or talk to a member of staff later. But we just want to make sure that that your project's more highly visible, that it's maybe part of a stumble upon experience for people who are coming across a different experience than they're used to in their own neighborhoods. Hi, Andrea.
Hi.
And we're just talking about public art, the public art theme.
Great.
And yeah, so feel free to also jump in here. That's why. But
we were just talking about that too, but not knowing what you've said, I'm going to keep listening to you.
Well, yeah, no, just I was talking about how broad our theme of public art is, that while Cultural Hotspot projects do still have to be community engaged, that we do need to have a component of public art this year. And so, whether that's public performance or, music or anything else, it doesn't have to just be visual art. We have that broad scope. And so I just was trying to think about the best way to explain that. But
we were just talking about kind of in our group about the idea of sound installations or soundscapes. And we started talking about projections, different ways that things can live in the public realm, even if the whole project is not public art per se. And we were just hearing from Peggy talking about a medicine garden, and Nafal was getting very excited about the idea of scents and sounds and the different senses that could be engaged. So I think we are quite open to what public art is, but it does need to be grounded somewhat in that. I don't think that can be the add-on component necessarily.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also important to note that the public art aspect of or theme can be temporary. It does not have to be permanent public art. It can be one day, it could be up for, years, but there's a very broad range. We're not considering, that this is a permanent installation that has to, withstand the test of time. It's a public art experience that can be quite broad in scope.
I think with that, I guess we're at the point of saying thank you genuinely to everybody for joining us this evening, for being generous with your ideas and your thoughts and your time. We appreciate it. We know 2 hours is no small amount of time. So we're really looking forward to the potential of getting to work with some of you, in the coming year. We're going to look forward to that. And we invite your questions and you reaching out to us. That's all from me for now. I would just say, thank you. And please do reach out. We're genuine in that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
With that, have a good night.
Thanks.
Okay.